Right now I am walking on the property of Edsel and Eleanor Ford. This has been opened to the public when Eleanor decided to do so many years ago. I'm walking here on this property because my grandfather worked for the Ford company for 35 years. He was on the board of directors for a while with Edsel Ford, who was Edsel Ford II, most likely, and the grandson of the original Edsel Ford I. I always remember my grandmother liking to tell a story about how they were in a ski lodge with Edsel, and there was a journalist there that was asking them questions, and the journalist caught wind of Edsel's shoes, thought they looked amazing. The journalist said, "Oh wow, your shoes look beautiful. Where do you get them from?" Edsel said that he had them custom made, which was why they were as beautiful as they were. And the journalist, for whatever reason, decided to turn to my grandfather and make a similar comment about his shoes, saying, "Oh, your shoes also look amazing. Who makes your shoes?" And without skipping a beat, my grandfather said, "Jacques Penney." J.C. Penney's. My grandparents really had a flair for telling amusing anecdotes throughout their life. I remember my grandmother talking about them passing a Cadillac on the side of the road before they were married, and she asked him, "Which would you rather have, me or this car?" And my grandfather, once again without skipping a beat, says, "What year?" It was always nice to hear them talk. My grandmother was always smiling, and as my aunt likes to say, they were people of their word. Whenever they said they were going to do something, they went out and did it. And they also tried to make the best of things for the world around them. My grandmother helped to get the Women's Voters League of Livonia, Michigan running with some other women. My grandfather and grandmother both eventually worked to have orchestral concerts for the senior area that they lived in, and my grandfather would work to bring in famous composers and musical artists to play. The president of the association had asked my grandparents on multiple occasions if they would take over as the presidents of the association, both of them individually and as co-presidents, and they refused and remained assistant presidents for a while, though in hushed tones presidents of it, while they brought in the musical composers and had music playing there. Never myself got to come and see the performances, and I really wish I had. It would have been quite lovely to experience, but I do at least have appreciation for classical music and try to go when I can. My grandmother also worked at the University of Michigan in the women's part of the University of Michigan and tried to encourage women to go and do things that in the past had normally been considered men's jobs, and tried to influence women being able to have equal footing in her job there. And she also helped to teach English to refugees who were coming to the United States, and all sorts of things. My grandfather liked to say that when the war was over, World War II, and there was no need for signing up or a draft or anything like that, he decided to sign up. And he got sent over to be a prison guard for a while at a place where they kept the supposed Tokyo Rose, who they later learned wasn't really Tokyo Rose, since it was a bunch of different people. Had a few people come in and walk by. This is Bird Island that I'm sitting on here. You might hear some chirps in the background. But yeah, so he worked as a prison guard for a while, and then they found out that he had some college experience. Just a few classes, and they decided that he should be put in charge of part of it, just because of that college experience, which he wasn't ready for whatsoever. Didn't really go very well. People didn't like him being in that position. He wasn't very religious, so the Jewish side of the military there were upset at him for not going to the synagogue. The other side of the military were upset with the Jewish people for going to the synagogue. But he never went. He still got them upset at him from both angles, which really sucks. But you know, life is the way it is. And he did eventually do pretty well, being at Ford for 35 years. I think my grandparents would have liked if there was good things done in their names. So I was talking to someone this morning about how I had come out here to try and find a way to remember my grandparents, since we didn't have a funeral for them. And he mentioned that there are memorial forests down in the Ontario area, and that you might be able to get something planted in memory of them. And I found the Arbor National website and donated to have them plant a small forest of 120 trees in the name of my grandparents, which apparently can provide oxygen for 480 people. Sounds pretty cool. I think my grandparents would have liked that. I miss them a lot, and I wish they were still around. My aunt liked to say that they were of a dying breed, that there wasn't really anyone that was quite like them anymore. People who tried to help out others wherever they could and tried to stick to their word where they could. And I am proud to be able to have called them my grandparents, and happy that I got to know them and that they influenced me as much as they did. I don't know where I would be today without my grandparents in my life, and I wish I had had more time with them. They were always smiling, even mostly towards the end. They were very, very smiley people, full of lots of energy. They could really brighten a room. My grandmother used to really fill it with all of her stories. She'd tell us about how they went to different places around the world and got to do so a lot because of travel with Ford. One of the vacations that they got to go on there on a small rickety plane and fell asleep somewhere during the ride, and the pilot had skipped where they were supposed to be dropped off and was dropping off the other passengers. So they were just in a clearing where they had landed there, and the pilot went to go ask his manager or boss or whatever if he could fly them back, because normally that would mess up the flight plans. And while he was going to ask that, some soldiers came out of the trees carrying machine guns, and my grandmother said the whole time she was thinking, well, this is it. At least I got to live a pretty good life. While my grandfather was just kind of smiling to himself. He saw that their outfits had CR on it, which meant that they were the Costa Rican military, and he didn't feel very threatened by the situation, because he knew that they weren't just going to shoot them for no reason, or at least that's what he felt like. But they were searching for a president that had been ousted, if I'm remembering the story correctly, and he was running away because he was to be held accountable for things that he had done. And they thought that maybe he was on the plane that was sitting there in the clearing. Once they figured out that he wasn't, they ended up leaving them alone. But it was pretty scary for my grandmother. I probably would have never met my grandmother if that had turned out differently. But yeah, she'd tell stories like that. Some of them funny, some of them kind of horrifying, and just all sorts of things all over the place. She liked to tell one about how when they were leaving St. Thomas, she almost stepped in a pool of water which had the brightest, reddest snake she had ever seen in her life. And she thought that it must be poisonous for being so bright red like that. And she's glad that she didn't step on it and possibly end up getting poisoned. Just so many different things, and I hope that someday I'll be able to go out and visit half as many places as they did. Been to a lot of places in the United States, and been to Canada obviously, and Mexico. I've been to Hungary for work for a little while, and went out to France for a weekend. The Louvre is huge. Spent about 6 hours there and didn't really feel like I did more than a fourth of the place, maybe not even that. There's just so much there, and my grandmother was just always so interested in listening to those stories. But I brought out some tulips to say goodbye to them. It's meant to be a flower meaning love, and just kind of a remembrance of them. And I thought that Lake St. Clair here was a nice place to just toss them out to. They're obviously biodegradable since they're just flowers. I don't think the Fords will mind too much if I toss these flowers out into a public lake to just float on the waves in memory of people I wish I still had in my life. It's hard to know what the right path is to take in life, but I sure think my grandparents did a great job of finding a good path with theirs. My grandfather used to say that his family liked to have cake and ice cream as a dessert when he was growing up. And in his house, there was only one flavor, and that was chocolate. So they loved chocolate, and to the very end, my grandfather would always get chocolate ice cream and chocolate cake whenever he was getting a dessert. And I went to get a chocolate cake for my grandmother's birthday to celebrate with him. And he ate a little bit of it, and that was the 15th of January, and was 3 days before he passed away. He passed away just before my grandmother's birthday on the 19th. And the caretaker said that when she came in, she heard my grandfather talking to the ceiling and asked him who he was talking to. And he said, "Oh, about 100 important people and my wife." And then he said my grandma's name. He said, "Hey, let's get out of this madhouse." And he passed away. So I'd like to think that he went peacefully enough, because he felt like he was greeting my grandmother and leaving with her. I bought from Trader Joe's one of my grandfather's favorite chocolate bars, the 1 pound plus with almonds in it, so that I could enjoy a little bit of that while sitting here and listening to the water on this beautiful property, Bird Island. And I hope that the trees planted in their memory end up being something good for people in the future, and that they can provide shade for people like my grandparents provided for me when I was growing up. I love you, Grandma and Grandpa. I hope you're in a better place now.